In the early 1900s, there was one man you didn't say no to, John D. Rockefeller. He didn't just sell oil, he was the oil industry. Standard Oil owned all the refineries, the railroads, the pipelines, even the price per barrel. If you drilled oil, you paid him. If you sold oil, you sold to him. And if you tried to go around him, well, you'd better enjoy lawsuits, sabotage, and going bankrupt defending yourself in court. When Rockefeller made you an offer, it wasn't a deal. It was a thinly veiled threat with a polite signature. Unless, of course, you were a broke, unproven wildcatter named Thomas Slick. While every other oil man folded or fled, Thomas Slick rolled up his sleeves, dug in his heels, and drilled anyway. And what happened next didn't just make him rich. It helped bring down the most powerful monopoly in American history. Thomas Baker Slick didn't have a wealthy childhood. He was born in Pennsylvania in 1883, a time when Rockefeller had already gobbled up most of the oil fields in the East. So Slick packed up and moved south. First to Kansas, then Oklahoma, where oil was still young, wild, and very much up for grabs. This was the land of roughnecks and speculation. And Slick, he thrived in it. He had no formal training, no family money, and no geological background. What he did have was a nose for oil and the nerve to chase it. Over and over, he would scrape together whatever cash he could, lease land no one wanted, and drill on pure gut instinct. Most people laughed him off. In fact, by 1912, they weren't just laughing at him, they were calling him Dry Hole Slick, because every single hole he drilled came up empty.
That's similar to the name people call you.
Hey now, be nice. At least there was a clever reason he got his nickname. They called him Dry Hole Slick because he drilled 17 holes in a row, never striking oil. Investors bailed. Landowners wanted their leases back. Locals started betting on which well would be the final nail in his financial coffin. But Slick wasn't done. On the 18th try, near Cushing, Oklahoma, he finally struck oil. And he struck big. The Wheeler No. 1 well shot up 400 bales a day. And just like that, Dry Hole Slick was gone, and the oil king of Oklahoma was born. But while striking oil took time, it wasn't the hardest part. Keeping control of it, now that was an entirely different game. You see, by that time, oil wasn't just money, it was power. And John D. Rockefeller had most of both. His company, Standard Oil, wasn't just big, it had become an oil monopoly. He controlled the refineries, the railroads, the pipelines, the banks, and most importantly, he controlled the price. If you struck oil, you had three options. Sell your oil to Standard, let them buy you out, or get steamrolled into retirement by bankruptcy.
You call those options?
Well, Rockefeller's power was real and terrifying in that day. His playbook was simple. Buy up all the surrounding land near his rivals' wells to block them from expanding, offer just enough money to tempt them into selling their oil field, and if that didn't work, well, he would flood the market and make their oil worthless. Nothing personal, just ruthless, brutal business. And the courts? They were still catching up to what a monopoly even looked like. By the time Thomas struck oil in Oklahoma, Standard Oil had already made moves to dominate that region. They had agents across the state sniffing out leases, offering pennies on the dollar to small drillers, and using their railroad deals to box out anyone who tried to ship oil independently. They figured Slick would lay down easy, just another wildcatter who got lucky. Rockefeller figured Slick was someone who'd trade in his roughneck boots for a few bucks and a handshake. But Slick didn't want a handshake. He wanted to build refineries and pipelines. He wanted to create an oil empire of his very own. And when Standard agents came knocking, he didn't just say no, he slammed the door right in their face.
That must have been so satisfying.
Now, I bet. When Standard Oil realized Slick wasn't selling, they tried Plan B, starve him out. They refused to transport his oil on their rail lines, so he built a pipeline. They tried to lock him out of refineries. He built his own. They tried to muscle him out with price wars. He dropped his price lower and kept pumping. It was David versus Goliath, but instead of a slingshot, Slick had oil rigs, a stubborn streak, and a deep understanding of just how far he could push. Even when rival oilmen called him a fool for not cashing out, Slick kept expanding. He co-founded the company High Grade Oil. He secured independent shipping contracts, and he even worked deals with rival refineries to keep his operation alive. But this wasn't just business for Thomas, it was personal. Rockefeller had made a career of buying small operations, and Slick saw right through it. Every delay tactic, every backroom deal, every friendly offer dressed up to look like a lifeline, he sniffed it out and countered. By the time the feds finally started paying attention, Slick had turned Cushing into a full-on oil boomtown, one that didn't rely on Standard Oil. The Justice Department finally filed an antitrust case against Standard Oil, and it didn't come a moment too soon. By the time the Supreme Court ruled to break up Standard Oil into 34 companies, the monopoly had already sunk its claws into every pipe, rail, and barrel in the country. But just because the ruling came down didn't mean Standard's grip vanished overnight. The structure changed, but the strong-arm tactics didn't. So when Slick struck oil in 1912, he walked straight into a post-breakup battlefield, one where Standard's offspring still played by their old man's rules. Instead of backing down, he built his oil empire right under their nose, proving that independent oilmen didn't need a monopoly to survive. And Dry Hole Slick? Well, he didn't just survive it, he thrived in the aftermath. His refusal to bow out helped prove that Standard's grip on the oil industry wasn't just unfair, it was illegal. By the time he died in 1930, Slick had made millions. He helped found multiple oil companies and turned Oklahoma into one of the richest energy regions in the country. Rockefeller built an empire by crushing competition. Slick built one by outlasting the competition. So yeah, next time someone tells you to just take the deal, maybe remember the guy who said no to Rockefeller and made him regret it. Slick outlasted a monopoly and defeated a tycoon. And by the way, this story reminds me of that time one man leveraged a family debt into a land deal so bold, they still call it Pennsylvania. But we'll get to that one on the next trip downstream.